The observation deck of the Galactic Council station offered a view that most species considered beautiful. Stars stretched across the black canvas of space like scattered jewels. Ambassador Crixthal of the Valorian Empire stood at the viewing window with his 4 arms folded behind his back. His scales shifted from deep blue to purple as he watched the small human vessel dock at the station. It had been 3 standard cycles since first contact with the species called humans. They came from a small planet in an unremarkable solar system. Nothing about their world suggested they would become the most controversial species in galactic history. But Crixthal had learned that humans were full of surprises. The council chamber filled slowly with representatives from 47 member species. The Valorians took their seats on the elevated platforms designed for large reptilian bodies. The Fenari floated in their anti-gravity chairs, their gaseous forms shifting with each emotional change. The Kroth delegation stamped their hooved feet impatiently, eager to begin. High Counselor Merix called the assembly to order. The ancient Fenari's form glowed bright yellow, demanding attention from all present. We gather today to discuss a matter of grave concern. The Human Assessment Committee has completed its evaluation period. Ambassador Valdez, please present yourself. Elena Valdez walked to the central platform with the confidence that Crixthal had come to recognize as typical of her species. She was small by galactic standards, barely reaching the chest height of an average Valorian. Her soft skin showed no natural armor or protective scales. Her blunt teeth could not tear through flesh. Her flat nails were useless as weapons. And yet something about her presence made Crixthal's ancient predator instincts stir with unease. High Counselor, honored delegates, Elena began, her voice calm and measured. Humanity is grateful for the opportunity to address this council. We have waited patiently during the assessment period, and we are eager to discuss our application for full membership in the Galactic Council. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Crixthal noticed that the Fenari delegation had turned a deep shade of red, indicating distress. High Counselor Merix's glow flickered. Ambassador Valdez, I must inform you that the assessment results have raised serious concerns among the member species. Before we proceed, the Council has requested a presentation of certain findings. Elena's expression remained neutral. Of course, we are happy to address any concerns. The central holographic display activated, showing a rotating image of Earth. Crixthal had studied this world extensively during the assessment period. It was a planet of extremes, with temperatures ranging from frozen wastelands to scorching deserts. Life, there faced constant challenges from weather, predators, and the environment itself. The Human Assessment Committee reviewed extensive data from Earth's historical and biological records, Merix explained. We discovered something that requires immediate discussion. The hologram changed to show a landscape of golden grass stretching to the horizon. Crixthal recognized it as the African savanna from the human databases. The image zoomed in on a group of early humans. They were nearly naked, carrying simple wooden spears. Their bodies glistened with sweat under a brutal sun. These images were taken from human historical simulations based on archaeological evidence, Merix continued. What you are about to see has been verified by multiple independent scientific sources. The simulation began. Crixthal watched as the group of humans spotted a large four-legged animal in the distance. The creature was fast and powerful, with long curved horns that could kill with a single strike. Any sensible predator would have waited for easier prey or tried an ambush approach. The humans did neither. They simply started walking toward the animal, not running, walking. The creature noticed them and bolted away at incredible speed, disappearing over a hill in seconds. Crixthal expected the humans to give up. The prey was gone. The hunt was over. But the humans kept walking. The simulation compressed time, showing hours passing as the humans followed the animal's trail. The sun moved across the sky. The temperature rose to deadly levels. Crixthal calculated that his own species would have died from heat exposure within an hour under those conditions. The humans walked on. Their skin dripped with water that Crixthal's translator identified as sweat, a cooling mechanism unique to very few species in the galaxy. They drank from containers they carried and poured water over their heads. Their legs moved with mechanical steadiness, covering distance that seemed impossible for such small bodies. Hours passed. They found the animal again. It ran, they followed. It ran again, they followed again. The chamber had grown completely silent. Crixthal glanced around and saw expressions of confusion, disbelief, and growing horror on the faces of the other delegates. The simulation reached its final stage. The sun was beginning to set. The animal stood in an open field, sides heaving, legs trembling. It could no longer run. It could barely stand. Foam dripped from its mouth as it struggled to breathe. And the humans were still coming. They approached the exhausted creature with the same steady pace they had maintained all day. No hurry, no rush, just relentless, unstoppable forward motion. The animal tried to move but collapsed. The lead human raised his spear and ended the hunt with a single thrust. The simulation ended. The chamber remained silent. High Counselor Merrick's form had shifted to a pale white that Crixthal had never seen before. Ambassador Valdez, the Council requires an explanation. This hunting method, this persistence hunting as your records call it, is unlike anything documented in galactic history. Alina nodded slowly. Yes, it is one of humanity's earliest hunting techniques. Our ancestors used it for hundreds of thousands of years. You chased animals until they died from exhaustion, Counselor Thresh of the Croth stated flatly. His hooves stamped the ground in obvious agitation. Your species literally walked prey to death. That is accurate, Alina confirmed. The Croth delegate made a sound that the translator rendered as extreme distress. My species evolved from prey animals. We survived because we could outrun our predators. But you would have followed us until we dropped dead from terror and exhaustion. Crixthal found himself speaking before he intended to. How is this possible? No predator species in our records employs this method. It is too slow, too energy-intensive, too dangerous. Alina turned to face him. Her eyes met his with no trace of fear, despite the fact that his species was considered one of the deadliest predators in the galaxy. Ambassador Crixthal, it works because humans are uniquely designed for endurance. We can regulate our body temperature through sweating, allowing us to remain active in heat that would incapacitate other predators. Our bipedal locomotion is remarkably energy efficient for long distances, and most importantly, we do not give up. She paused, letting the words sink in. No matter how fast you run, no matter how far you flee, a human will keep coming. We might take hours, we might take days, but we will catch you in the end. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted in a dozen different languages, their translators struggling to keep up. The Fenari shifted through colors so rapidly that they became nearly impossible to watch. The Croth delegation had actually retreated several steps from the human ambassador. Crixthal remained still, his mind processing what he had just witnessed. As a Velorian, he had always considered his species to be the ultimate predators. They were fast, strong, armored, and armed with claws that could shred steel. But even Velorian hunters relied on ambush tactics and overwhelming force. The idea of simply chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion had never occurred to his people. Because it was insane, because it should not work, because no rational creature would develop such a hunting strategy. And yet the humans had not only developed it, they had thrived using it for millennia. High Counselor Merrick finally restored order by amplifying his voice to painful levels. Silence! The council will maintain proper decorum. The chamber slowly quieted. though the tension remained thick enough to cut with a blade. Ambassador Valdez, Merrick's continued, his glow stabilizing to a cautious amber, the assessment committee has additional findings to present. With your permission, we will continue. Alina nodded. Please proceed. The holographic display changed to show a series of human athletic events. Crixthal watched in growing amazement as humans ran distances that seemed impossible. One event showed humans running continuously for what the display indicated was over 26 standard units of human distance measurement. Another showed a race across a desert that lasted multiple days. The most disturbing was an event called an ultramarathon, where humans ran for hundreds of kilometers through mountains, forests, and extreme weather conditions. These are not historical records, Merrick noted. These events occur regularly in human society to this day. Humans actively choose to push their bodies to these extremes for recreation. Recreation, a Fenari delegate flickered with disbelief. They do this for entertainment. For challenge, Alina corrected gently. For personal achievement, for the satisfaction of proving what the human body and spirit can accomplish. The display shifted again, this time showing graphs and biological data. Crixthal studied the information carefully. Human muscles contained a higher percentage of slotwich fibers compared to most species, making them efficient for sustained activity rather than short bursts. Their cooling system allowed continuous exertion in temperatures that would cause heat stroke in other species within minutes. Their skeletons were designed to absorb impact over millions of repetitive steps. But the most remarkable data concerned the human mind. Human psychological profiles show an extraordinary capacity for ignoring physical discomfort, Merrick explained. They can override pain signals, suppress exhaustion responses, and maintain focus on a goal long past the point where other species would collapse or surrender. They call this capacity willpower. Counselor Zin of the Melori Collective raised one of her 6 manipulator appendages. I must ask a clarifying question. Ambassador Valdez, if a human sets a goal, how long will they pursue it before accepting failure? Alina considered the question. That depends on the human and the goal. Some humans have pursued their goals for their entire lives, through every obstacle and setback imaginable. We have a saying, where there is a will, there is a way. And if there is no way? Alina smiled, an expression that Crixthal found strangely unsettling. Then humans make one. The chamber fell silent again. Crixthal understood why. The Melori Collective was one of the most advanced species in the galaxy. They had built their civilization through careful planning and rational decision-making. They abandoned projects when success became statistically unlikely. They accepted limitations and worked within them. The concept of a species that simply refused to accept limitations was deeply troubling. The assessment committee has prepared additional documentation, Merrick announced. We will now review human historical conflicts. Crixthal leaned forward with interest. Military capability was one of the primary factors in determining a species standing within the council. The humans had seemed unimpressive at first glance, lacking natural weapons, armor, or physical superiority. But after what he had just seen, he suspected there was more to discover. The holographic display showed images of human warfare through the ages, early battles with primitive weapons, the development of ranged weapons, the creation of explosive devices, the building of massive war machines. But it was not the weapons that caught the Council's attention, it was the persistence. One historical example showed a human nation that had faced invasion by a vastly superior force. Their cities were destroyed. Their armies were shattered. Their leaders urged surrender. But the people refused. They fought in the streets. They fought in the forests. They fought with whatever weapons they could find or make. When conventional resistance became impossible, they became guerrilla fighters, striking from shadows and then disappearing. The occupation lasted for years, but the humans never stopped fighting, never stopped resisting, never accepted defeat. Eventually, the invaders withdrew, not because they were defeated militarily, but because the cost of occupation had become too high. The humans had worn them down through sheer stubborn refusal to surrender. This pattern repeats throughout human history, Merrick's observed. When faced with overwhelming opposition, humans do not surrender. They adapt. They endure. They continue fighting by any means available until their opponent gives up or is destroyed. It is the same strategy as their hunting method, Krixthal realized aloud. They do not need to be stronger or faster. They only need to outlast their enemy. Alina nodded in his direction. Ambassador Krixthal is correct. Humans excel at endurance in all aspects of life. We have a phrase that captures this philosophy: fall down 7 times, stand up 8. What happens when a human faces a challenge they truly cannot overcome? Asked Counselor Thresh, his hooves still stamping nervously. That is an interesting question, Alina replied. Because in our entire history, we have never universally agreed on what constitutes an impossible challenge. What some consider impossible, others consider merely difficult. What one generation cannot achieve, the next generation attempts again. The display showed a series of human achievements that had once been considered impossible: breaking the sound barrier, walking on their moon, mapping their own genetic code, curing diseases that had killed millions, creating artificial intelligences. Each of these accomplishments was declared impossible by experts in the relevant fields, Alina explained. Each time, someone refused to accept that verdict and kept trying until they succeeded. Krixthal felt his scales shift to a dark crimson, indicating deep concern. The Valorian Empire had achieved dominance through superior physical capabilities and advanced technology. They had never faced an enemy that could not be intimidated by their strength or outmaneuvered by their speed. But humans could not be intimidated. They would not retreat. They would simply keep coming, generation after generation, until they found a way to win. High Counselor, Krixthal spoke carefully, I believe it is time to discuss the true purpose of this assembly. Merrick's glow shifted to a solemn purple. Very well. The assessment committee has reached a conclusion regarding human membership in the Galactic Council. Ambassador Valdez, it is my duty to inform you that your application has been denied. Alina's expression remained calm, but Krixthal noticed her hands tighten slightly. May I ask on what grounds? The Council has determined that human psychology poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability, Merrick's replied. Your species does not recognize natural boundaries. You do not accept defeat. You do not abandon goals, even when achieving them causes harm to others. A species with these characteristics cannot be safely integrated into galactic society. Furthermore, he continued, the Council has voted to implement additional measures. Effective immediately, human vessels are banned from entering Council space. All diplomatic relations with humanity are suspended. Any member species found providing assistance to humans will face severe penalties. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Alina Valdez stood perfectly still as the weight of the Council's decision settled over the chamber. Krixthal watched her carefully, expecting some sign of distress, anger, or desperation. Instead, he saw something that confused him deeply. She smiled. Not a smile of happiness, but something more complex. It was the smile of someone who had expected exactly this outcome and had already planned for it. High Counselor, Alina said, her voice still calm and measured, I appreciate the Council informing humanity of this decision directly. We will, of course, respect your wishes and withdraw our diplomatic mission. Merrick's form flickered with surprise. You accept this verdict without protest. I did not say that, Alina replied. I said we would withdraw. Acceptance is an entirely different matter. Ambassador Valdez, I hope you understand the seriousness of this situation, Counselor Zinn interjected. The ban is not a negotiating position. It is a permanent decision based on fundamental incompatibilities between human nature and galactic civilization. Alina turned to face the Melori delegate. Counselor, with respect, I understand the situation perfectly. You have concluded that humans are too persistent, too stubborn, too determined to be trusted. Your solution is to lock us out and hope we go away. She paused, letting the words sink in. But you have just spent the last hour explaining why that strategy will not work. You have shown this council exactly why humans cannot be ignored or contained. We do not give up. We do not go away. And now you have given my people a challenge. Crixthal felt a chill run down his armored spine. He suddenly understood what Alina was saying. The council had not neutralized the human threat. They had simply defined it. What are you suggesting? Counselor Thresh demanded, his voice carrying a note of fear. I am not suggesting anything, Alina said. I am simply making an observation. You have told humanity that we cannot join galactic civilization because of who we are. You have made our exclusion the goal, and you have just explained to this council that humans will pursue any goal relentlessly until it is achieved. The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. This is not a threat, Alina continued. Humanity does not wish conflict with the council. We approached you in good faith, seeking cooperation and mutual benefit, but you have rejected that approach, so now we will find another way. There is no other way, Merrick stated firmly. The council's decision is final. No appeals will be considered. Alina's smile widened slightly. High Counselor, one of the phrases mentioned in my records was where there is a will, there is a way. Humans believe this absolutely. Your ban is not an ending. It is simply an obstacle, and humans have overcome every obstacle we have ever faced. She began walking toward the exit, then paused and turned back. There is one more human phrase that seems appropriate. We call it the long game. It refers to a strategy that requires patience and persistence over extended periods. Humans are very good at playing the long game. We have been doing it for our entire existence as a species. The Council has made its decision today. That is fine. We can wait. We can work. We can adapt. And someday the circumstances will change. They always do. She nodded respectfully to the assembly. Until that day, the people of Earth wish the Galactic Council well. We will be seeing you again. With that, Ambassador Alina Valdez walked out of the chamber. The doors closed behind her with a soft hiss. No one spoke for a long time. Crixthal broke the silence. High Counselor, I fear we may have made a serious error. The decision was correct, Merrick replied, though his glow had dimmed considerably. Humans are too dangerous to integrate. Their persistence makes them unpredictable and uncontrollable. I do not dispute the danger, Crixthal said. I question whether exclusion will contain it. The ambassador was right. We have given them a goal. According to everything we just learned, they will now pursue that goal with relentless determination. What would you have us do? Counselor Thresh asked. Allow them into our society. Give them access to our technology and resources. They would eventually dominate everything. Perhaps, Crixthal admitted, but perhaps integration would have given us influence over their development. Perhaps cooperation would have directed their persistence toward goals that benefit all species. Now, we have made them our problem without any way to manage the situation. The council chamber buzzed with anxious discussion. Crixthal listened as delegates debated the implications of what they had just witnessed. Some argued that the ban should be enforced with military force. Others suggested attempting to negotiate limitations on human expansion. A few even proposed the unthinkable, preemptive action to eliminate the human threat before it could grow. But Crixthal knew none of these options would work. Military confrontation would give humans something to resist, and they excelled at resistance. Negotiations would only delay the inevitable, and attempting to destroy them would unite humanity against a common enemy, focusing all that terrifying persistence into a single goal: survival and revenge. The Council had created an impossible situation. By recognizing human persistence as a threat, they had ensured that persistence would eventually be directed against them. As Crixthal left the chamber, he found himself looking toward the docking area where the human vessel was preparing to depart. Through the transparent walls of the station, he could see the small ship undocking from its berth. It was an unremarkable vessel, small, utilitarian, lacking the elegant designs favored by more advanced species, but Crixthal now saw it differently. He saw a ship built by creatures who had walked across continents to catch their prey, who had fought wars that lasted generations, who had turned every impossibility they encountered into mere difficulty. The ship engaged its engines and began moving away from the station. Crixthal watched until it disappeared into the darkness of space. They would be back. He was absolutely certain of that. The only question was when and how. 50 cycles had passed since the Council's ban on humanity. Crixthal, now senior ambassador of the Valorian Empire, stood once again at the observation deck of the Council station. Much had changed in the galaxy, but the stars remained the same. The humans had not been idle. Reports had begun arriving within the first decade. Human colony ships, traveling at speeds that should have been impossible for such a young species, had established settlements on hundreds of worlds outside Council space. Each colony grew rapidly, and each colony launched more ships. The Council had monitored these developments with growing alarm. Humans were expanding faster than any species in galactic history. Their population doubled and doubled again. Their technology advanced at rates that defied conventional wisdom about scientific development. But what truly frightened the Council was the consistency. Human expansion never slowed. It never paused for consolidation. It never stopped to enjoy achievements before moving on to new challenges. The species operated with a single-minded focus that other civilizations could not match. In the 20th cycle, the first non-Council species made contact with humanity. The Torvax were a minor civilization on the edge of explored space, too primitive to qualify for Council membership, but advanced enough to have basic interstellar travel. They encountered a human vessel near their home system. The Council expected disaster. Humans were dangerous and unpredictable. Surely they would attempt to dominate or destroy the weaker species. Instead, the humans offered trade. Within 5 cycles, the Torvax civilization had advanced more than in the previous 1,000 years. Human teachers helped them develop new technologies. Human doctors shared medical knowledge that extended their lifespans. Human engineers helped them build better ships and habitats. The Council warned the Torvax that dealing with humans was dangerous. The Torvax politely declined to listen. Why would they reject friends who asked for nothing but fair trade and genuine cooperation? More species followed the same pattern. The Dreth, the Ilari, the Moxen Collective. One by one, civilizations on the edges of Council space found themselves welcomed into a new network of trade and alliance, a network centered on humanity. By the 40th cycle, human influence extended across a quarter of known space, not through conquest or domination, but through simple persistence. They offered help to anyone willing to accept it. They traded fairly and honored their agreements. They made themselves useful and gradually became indispensable. Crixthal had watched these developments with a mixture of admiration and dread. The humans were doing exactly what Ambassador Valdez had promised. They were playing the long game, building power and influence through patience and persistence rather than force. And now the game was about to change. A message had arrived at the Council station that morning. The Human Federation, as they now called themselves, was requesting a diplomatic meeting, not to discuss membership, but to propose a new arrangement between human space and council space. The council chamber filled with delegates, many of whom had not been born when the original ban was enacted. High Counselor Merix was long dead, replaced by a younger Fenari named Silrix who viewed humans with curiosity rather than fear. "The human vessel has docked," Silrix announced, her form glowing with anticipation. "We will receive their ambassador in standard diplomatic fashion." The chamber doors opened, and Crixthal felt a strange sense of history repeating. The woman who walked to the central platform was not Elena Valdez, of course. She had died many cycles ago, celebrated as one of humanity's greatest diplomats, but her successor carried herself with the same quiet confidence. "High Counselor, honored delegates," the new ambassador began. "I am Maria Santos, representing the Human Federation. I bring greetings from Earth and all human worlds as well as our allied species." "Ambassador Santos," Silrix replied, "the Council welcomes this opportunity for dialogue. We understand you wish to propose a new framework for relations between our civilizations." "Yes." Maria activated a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. Human space was marked in blue, Council space in gold. The two territories now shared a long border that had not existed 50 cycles ago. "As you can see, our civilizations have grown significantly since our last official contact. We now share extensive borders and have many common interests. Continued isolation is no longer practical for either side." Crixthal studied the map carefully. Human space was larger than he had realized. Their expansion had been even more successful than the Council's reports suggested, and the non-Council species allied with humanity represented significant additional population and resources. "What are you proposing?" a Kroth delegate asked suspiciously. "A partnership," Maria said simply, "not membership in the Council. We understand the concerns that led to our exclusion, and we do not wish to force change upon your institutions. Instead, we propose a formal alliance between the Galactic Council and the Human Federation." The display changed to show the proposed terms: trade agreements, scientific cooperation, military coordination against common threats, cultural exchange programs, joint exploration initiatives. "This alliance would benefit both civilizations," Maria continued. "The Council would gain access to human innovation and the resources of our allied species. Humanity would gain recognition and legitimacy in galactic affairs. Together, we could accomplish far more than either could alone." Crixthal noticed something important about the proposal. The terms were remarkably fair. The humans were not demanding concessions or special treatment. They were offering genuine partnership between equals. They could have demanded more. Their position was strong enough to dictate terms, but they had chosen cooperation over dominance. "Ambassador Santos," Crixthal spoke carefully, "I must ask a direct question. 50 cycles ago, this council banned humanity from galactic civilization. We declared your species too dangerous to integrate. Your predecessor accepted that decision and left. Now you return with an offer of friendship. Why?" Maria turned to face him. "Ambassador Crixthal, I have read the records of that meeting. I know what the council said about my species. I know why you feared us." "You were not entirely wrong," she continued. "Humans are persistent. We do not give up easily. We pursue our goals with determination that other species find uncomfortable. But you misunderstood something important. Our persistence is not inherently destructive. It can be directed toward any goal we choose. The Council chose to make our goal exclusion and isolation. We could have spent the last 50 cycles trying to force our way in. We could have built weapons and conquered worlds. We could have become the threat you feared. Instead, we chose a different goal. We decided to build something better. A civilization that proved humans could be trusted. A network of alliances that showed we valued cooperation over domination. a track record of peaceful development that demonstrated our intentions. She smiled, and Crixthal was reminded powerfully of Elena Valdez standing in the same spot 50 cycles earlier. We have been playing the long game, Ambassador, and now we are ready to share the results. The council debated for 3 days. Crixthal participated in every session, his ancient voice carrying weight that younger delegates respected. He argued for acceptance of the human proposal, though he knew his reasons would surprise many who heard them. "We made an error 50 cycles ago," he told the assembly, "not in recognizing human persistence as significant, but in treating it as a threat rather than a resource. The humans have spent 5 decades proving that their nature can be directed toward positive goals. We would be fools to reject the evidence before us." "But the original concerns remain valid," countered a Mallory delegate. "Human persistence has not changed. If we become partners and later have disagreements, they will pursue their interests with the same relentless determination." "Yes," Crixthal agreed. "And that is exactly why we should accept this offer. If conflict is inevitable, it is better to have humans as partners working within agreed frameworks than as outsiders with no stake in our institutions. The ban did not contain them. It only delayed the reckoning while allowing them to build power outside our influence." The debate continued, but Crixthal sensed the momentum shifting. Too many delegates had come to recognize the reality of the situation. Human power could no longer be ignored. The question was not whether to engage with humanity, but how. On the 4th day, High Counselor Silrix called for the final vote. The chamber fell silent as delegates registered their decisions through the ancient voting system. The result was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The Galactic Council voted to accept the Human Federation's alliance proposal. Crixthal watched Ambassador Santos receive the news with quiet dignity. No celebration, no triumph, just a simple nod of acknowledgement. The humans had waited 50 cycles for this moment, and they responded with the same patient confidence they had shown at every step. The signing ceremony was held the following day. Representatives from all 47 council species attended, along with delegations from the Human Federation and their allied civilizations. It was the largest diplomatic gathering in galactic history. Crixthal stood near the central platform as the formal documents were prepared. He found himself approached by Ambassador Santos, who moved to stand beside him at the observation window. "Ambassador Crixthal," she said, "I wanted to thank you personally. The records show you supported our cause during the debates." "I supported logical action based on observable evidence," he replied. "Your species proved its worth through decades of consistent behavior. Only a fool ignores such proof." Maria smiled. "Still, I appreciate it. I know the history between our peoples has been complicated." "I was present at the original meeting," Crixthal said. "I watched Ambassador Valdez respond to our ban. I have thought about that moment many times over the years." "What do you remember most?" Crixthal's scales shifted thoughtfully. Her certainty. She showed no doubt that humanity would eventually achieve its goals. At the time I thought it was arrogance. Now I understand it was simply human. "My grandmother knew her," Maria said. "She said Ambassador Valdez often talked about that day. She believed it was the most important moment in human diplomatic history, not because of the ban, but because of how we chose to respond to it." "She was correct," Crixthal agreed. "Many species would have responded to exclusion with aggression or despair. You chose to build. That choice defined everything that followed." The ceremony began. Crixthal watched as representative after representative added their species seal to the alliance documents. The process took hours, but no one complained. History was being made, and everyone present understood its significance. When Ambassador Santos added humanity's seal, the chamber erupted in polite applause. 50 cycles of isolation ended with a simple stamp on an official document. But Crixthal knew the true significance went far deeper. The Council had not simply accepted an alliance. They had acknowledged that their original judgment was flawed. Human persistence was not a threat to be contained. It was a force that could reshape the galaxy for the better. The reception afterward brought together species that had never interacted before. Council members mingled with human allies, exchanging greetings and beginning conversations that would lead to countless collaborations in the cycles to come. Crixthal observed a group of Torvax delegates speaking excitedly with Fenari scientists. A Kroth trading representative was negotiating with human merchants. Melori philosophers were engaged in deep discussion with human academics. It was the beginning of a new era. Ambassador Crixthal, Maria Santos, appeared beside him again. "I have something for you, a gift from the Human Federation." She handed him a small device. When he activated it, a holographic recording appeared. It showed Ambassador Elena Valdez, looking exactly as she had on that day 50 cycles ago. "If you are watching this," the recording said, "then humanity has achieved what I promised. We have found our way back to the Galactic Council. It may have taken years or decades or centuries, but we never stopped trying. We never gave up." Valdez smiled in the recording, the same confident smile Crixthal remembered. "This message is for whoever chose to support us when the time came. Thank you for having faith in human persistence. Thank you for believing that we could be better than our reputation. And thank you for giving us the chance to prove it." The recording faded. Crixthal stood silently for a long moment, processing what he had just seen. "She recorded that the day after the ban was announced," Maria explained. "She knew someday someone would need to hear it. She trusted that we would find allies eventually." "She planned for this moment 50 cycles in advance," Crixthal said slowly, "knowing she would never live to see it. That is remarkable." "That is human," Maria said simply. Crixthal looked out at the gathering of species, united for the first time in galactic history. Humans moved among them easily, building connections, offering assistance, creating bonds that would strengthen over time. They had been rejected and banned and isolated. They had been called dangerous and uncontrollable and threatening, and they had responded by becoming indispensable allies to everyone willing to give them a chance. The Council had feared human persistence. They had tried to contain it and failed. Now they would harness it instead, channeling all that relentless determination toward goals that benefited every species in the galaxy. It was, Crixthal reflected, probably the best possible outcome. The humans had won, but they had done so in a way that made their victory a gift to everyone. He looked at the small device in his clawed hand, containing a message from a woman who had believed in her species so completely that she had planned for triumph decades before it arrived. "Ambassador Santos," he said finally, "I believe this alliance will change everything." "It will," she agreed. "Humans are very good at changing things. We see a world and imagine how it could be better. Then we work until it becomes reality. That is our nature." The Council once thought that nature was a threat. And now, Crixthal watched a young Valorian delegate shake hands with a human scientist, both smiling with genuine warmth. He watched Fenari and Kroth and Melori, and dozens of other species beginning conversations that would lead to friendships and partnerships and discoveries beyond imagination. "Now," he said, "I believe it is our greatest hope." Maria Santos smiled the same patient, confident smile that Ambassador Valdez had worn 50 cycles ago. "We always knew you would come around eventually," she said. "We were willing to wait." And with that, the long hunt was over. Humanity had finally caught its prey, not through violence or conquest, but through the same relentless persistence that had made them who they were. They had simply refused to stop until they won. And that, Crixthal understood now, was what made humans the most remarkable species in the galaxy.